Hey there, and welcome to S Historia. If you're passionate about history and want to keep up with our latest discoveries, make sure to follow us so you don't miss out on this video and all our future ones. Oh, and don't forget to support us by subscribing, liking, and dropping a comment below. It really helps us out. Extraordinary mummy discoveries in Egypt and beyond. Egyptian archaeologists recently made a stunning discovery near Cairo, the oldest and most complete mummy ever found in the country. This 4,300-year-old mummy was uncovered in a group of tombs near the Step Pyramid of Djoser, dating back to the Old Kingdom. The body was covered in layers of gold. The team also found several other tombs, including one that belonged to an ancient Egyptian official and another to a secret guardian who performed special rituals. One particularly interesting tomb belonged to a scribe, and inside were the largest statues ever discovered in the area. The vast burial site also includes over a dozen pyramids and resting places. One of the world's most famous mummies is Hatshepsut. She ruled Egypt for nearly 20 years, building impressive monuments and creating new trade routes. But when Howard Carter discovered her tomb in the Valley of the Kings, her sarcophagus was empty. However, Carter did find two coffins in another tomb, one for Hatshepsut's nurse and another for an unknown woman. In 2006, a team of specialists tried to determine if that unknown woman was Hatshepsut herself. They found a tooth in a wooden box labeled with her name. When compared with a gap in the mummy's jaw, it was a perfect fit. Another remarkable pharaoh was Ramses II. Though his father is rarely mentioned, Ramses became the most powerful pharaoh of Egypt, ruling for 6 decades and living to over 90 years old, a huge feat for that time. He fathered more than 100 children. After his death, his body was buried in the Valley of the Kings. But when thieves attempted to rob his tomb, officials secretly moved his mummy to keep it safe. In the 19th century, Ramses II's mummy was discovered alongside other rulers. Unfortunately, it was in poor condition, so archaeologists flew it to Paris for restoration. Since ancient remains couldn't normally travel internationally, Ramses was given his own passport, with his occupation listed as king and even his photograph included. Not all mummies are dry and brittle. A wealthy woman known as Lady Di, discovered in 1971 in a decorated tomb, had skin that was still soft, hair neatly in place, and a flexible body thanks to the unique environment of her burial chamber. Items buried with her included fancy clothing and musical instruments. Scientists determined she died of a heart attack at age 50. Even after 2,000 years, Lady Di remains one of the best-preserved mummies ever found. In 1991, hikers in the Alps discovered Ötzi the Iceman. At first he was mistaken for a modern climber, but tests revealed he was from the Copper Age. Found at over 10,000 feet, his body revealed much about prehistoric life in Europe. He ate meat, suffered from arthritis and clogged arteries, and likely used acupuncture and herbal medicine. His tools had been sharpened just before his early death, suggesting he was preparing for trouble or hard work. Of course, King Tutankhamun is the most famous mummy of all. He died young at 19, over 3,000 years ago. When his tomb was opened in 1922, the discovery caused worldwide excitement because it was nearly untouched. His burial chamber held golden coffins and countless treasures. DNA analysis later revealed that he suffered from a rare bone disorder. Then there's Ginger, one of the oldest naturally preserved mummies, dating back about 5,000 years. His body dried out naturally in Egypt's hot desert sand, giving him golden hair and perfectly preserved nails. He was even buried with pottery, hinting that early Egyptians may have had some understanding of preservation techniques. Today, Ginger can be seen at the British Museum. In another strange case, a Dutch art collector bought an Asian statue only to find a mummy hidden inside. The body was so fragile it couldn't be removed. CT scans revealed that the mummy's body was stuffed with paper inscribed with writings. Experts believe this man had practiced self-mummification, a grueling spiritual ritual that only a few could complete, earning them deep respect. Few queens have sparked as much fascination as Nefertiti, whose name means the beautiful woman has come. Known for her elegant neck and striking features, she wasn't a pharaoh herself, but played a powerful role as queen. She was also King Tut's stepmother. Recently, 2 unidentified mummies found in the Valley of the Kings may turn out to be Nefertiti and her daughter. DNA and CT scans could finally reveal her true identity. Egypt continues to surprise archaeologists with its mysteries. In one shocking find, 16 human right hands were uncovered in 4 pits. No left hands, only rights. This matched ancient accounts of a grim ritual where warriors presented the right hands of enemies as proof of victory in exchange for gold. Cutting off the right hand was also seen as taking away a person's power forever. Another major discovery was a massive papyrus scroll, longer than the height of the world's smallest skyscraper. Written about 2,000 years ago, it described Egyptian traditions and beliefs about the afterlife. Found in a chamber south of the Step Pyramid at Saqqara, it remains one of the most important texts from ancient Egypt. And back at Saqqara, archaeologists recently uncovered one of the oldest complete mummies in Egypt. Believed to belong to a wealthy man, it was found deep in a shaft, wrapped in gold leaves, a discovery that continues to shed light on the secrets of the ancients. There were plenty of signs that this man was wealthy and important. The headband he wore, the chest ornament, and the fine vest that only Egypt's elite could afford. But the most exciting part of the discovery was that his burial chamber was completely sealed with mortar, just as the ancient Egyptians left it 4,300 years ago. Strangely enough, in 2008, archaeologists uncovered what they called a lost pyramid. It hadn't really disappeared. Time and erosion had simply reduced it to its base after 4,000 years. Back in the day, this was an extremely important site. Records suggest that special ceremonies were held around it, where high priests carried the mummified remains of sacred Apis bulls. Here's the fun part. The Egyptians believed the Apis bull was the earthly form of the god of Memphis and connected to fertility rituals. But not just any bull could qualify. It had to be completely black with a single white mark between its horns, along with other very specific traits. Once chosen, the bull was honored until its death, then carefully mummified and buried underground. The lost pyramid itself faded from memory around the 19th century until a German archaeologist rediscovered it in the village of Saqqara. He first called it the Headless Pyramid, but over time, desert sands buried it again. It wasn't until more recent excavations that researchers cleared a 25-foot-high sand mound to reveal the base in full. Meanwhile, American archaeologists digging elsewhere in Egypt found a burial site that could contain more than 1 million mummies. So far, they've uncovered about 1,700. These weren't kings or pharaohs, though. They were everyday people who lived about 1,500 years ago during the Roman and Byzantine periods. The cemetery even has a memorable name, something like Water Buffalo Cemetery. Ancient Egyptians didn't just mummify bulls, they loved baboons too. In the early 20th century, archaeologists found a site literally called the Valley of the Monkeys, filled with mummified baboons. Animals weren't embalmed unless they were considered important, usually because they were tied to specific gods. Jackals were linked to Anubis, cats to Bastet, and baboons to Thoth, the god of wisdom and advisor to Ra. But studying these poor baboons showed they weren't treated well. They were likely kept indoors, deprived of sunlight, malnourished, and suffering from vitamin D deficiency. Maybe Thoth wasn't too happy about how his sacred animals were cared for. Archaeologists also found human mummies with golden tongues. Egyptians believed these gold tongues would let the dead speak in the afterlife. Some of these mummies were buried in wooden coffins with jewelry, pottery, lotus-shaped trinkets, and scarabs. No, not iPhones. Just kidding. Another recent find was a temple in Sinai believed to have been dedicated to Zeus Cassios, a fusion of the Greek sky god Zeus and Mount Casios. Archaeologists discovered 2 pink granite columns, thought to have been the temple's gateway, toppled long ago by an earthquake. Speaking of gods, a gold ring was uncovered south of Cairo, engraved with the image of Bes, the cheerful dwarf god of fun and protection. Bes often appeared in women's tattoos, which in ancient Egypt symbolized protection during childbirth. At one Nile site, researchers found mummies with well-preserved tattoos, an extremely rare discovery since skin usually deteriorates quickly. 2 women had simple tattoos on their lower backs, including depictions of Bes himself, doubling as charms for safe delivery. Now here's a wild one. Did the Egyptians invent robots? Not really, but they did make mechanical statues. In the Met Museum, experts scanned a wooden figure and found a hidden mechanism inside. It had a pulley-like shaft running from the shoulder to the leg. When activated, the statue's arm would raise and lower as if saying, pick me, jump back to 1898 in Saqqara. Archaeologists hoping for treasure and royal mummies instead dug up a small wooden bird. At first it looked like a toy, but later some speculated it was an ancient model airplane. Known as the Saqqara bird, it was carved from sycamore wood, with a 7-inch wingspan and weighing about 40 grams. Though plain, its square tail and unusual shape made some wonder if it once had a missing tailpiece, making it aerodynamically sound. For years, theories ranged from ceremonial object to child's toy. But in the 20th century, Egyptologist Dr. Khalil Masiha suggested it was a model of a monoplane. He believed the wings were angled just like those of modern aircraft and could generate lift. Models built later based on the bird even managed short glides, though skeptics weren't convinced. Still, if true, it would be an example of an out-of-place artifact, technology far ahead of its time. And of course, there's King Tut. Unlike many royal tombs, Tutankhamun's burial place stayed hidden and untouched for 3,000 years. It was smaller than most and cleverly concealed in the Valley of the Kings. Its entrance was buried under rubble from another tomb's construction, and there were no markings on the outside to give it away. Time kept it safe until the 1920s, when Howard Carter finally uncovered it. But was Carter a pure hero of archaeology, or a little more cunning than history remembers? Some recent evidence suggests he may have been both. In his relentless search for Egyptian artifacts, Carter's fascination with these unusual objects began when he was just a child. He quickly started sketching the carvings and inscriptions found in ancient tombs. After the discovery of King Tut's remains, Carter spent nearly a decade cataloging and preserving all sorts of treasures from the tomb, golden thrones, chariots, statues, and sending them down the Nile to the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. At least, that was the official story. Later discoveries suggest not everything made it into the hands of Egyptian authorities. A secret letter revealed Carter's little motto, 10 for them and 1 for me. The letter, dated 1922, was sent to his friend Sir Alan Gardner, a linguist and close companion. In it, Carter mentioned finding the tomb and asked for his friend's advice. Another letter from 1934 shows Gardner thanking Carter for an amulet he received as a gift. Carter swore it didn't come from Tut's tomb, but the truth was obvious. Even the British director of the Egyptian Museum suspected Carter's secret dealings but couldn't prove anything. When Gardner compared his amulet to one found in Tut's tomb, they matched exactly. Furious at being put in such an awkward position, Gardner confronted Carter in another letter. Still, instead of cutting ties with him, Gardner urged Carter to return the stolen piece to Cairo. And this wasn't the only shady rumor surrounding Carter after the discovery. In 1947, Alfred Lucas, who had worked with another controversial archaeologist, published claims in a Cairo newspaper. He said Carter secretly broke into the burial chamber himself, then resealed it before the official opening. Why? The theory goes that Carter and his team may have entered early to take a few choice artifacts. It seems they avoided selling them while alive, but once they died, these pieces often showed up in auctions. Carter himself never admitted anything, and never officially denied it either. Still, the Egyptian government wasn't willing to risk more mysterious disappearances, so they barred him from the tomb for a while. Some people even linked these thefts to the so-called Curse of Tutankhamun. If you haven't heard of it, the idea spread shortly after the tomb was opened, that anyone disturbing the boy king's resting place would suffer terrible misfortune. It wasn't quite as dramatic as a mummy coming back to life, but rumors spread of people involved with the tomb dying under strange circumstances. The most famous case was Lord Carnarvon, the British aristocrat who financed the excavation. He died just a year after the tomb was opened. People called it mysterious, but the reality is that he was already in poor health when he came to Cairo and eventually died of a regular illness. Looking at the bigger picture, many people were involved with the tomb. Archaeologists, guards, assistants, and yes, a few of them died not long after it opened. But statistically, with a group that large, some deaths were bound to happen by chance. In fact, most of those supposedly cursed lived on for decades. On average, they survived more than 20 years after the tomb was opened. Herbert's daughter lived well into the 1980s, over 50 years after the supposed curse. And Carter himself lived until 1935, a full 16 years after the big discovery. Many now believe the curse wasn't supernatural at all, but rather a clever publicity stunt. Finally, thanks so much for listening and spending your time with us today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to follow S Historia and keep an eye out for future episodes. Please subscribe